Welcome back to the tennis vlog. At the current moment, I expect no one to be here because the previous stream crashed. I'd had a bit of trouble with it, but I think it was ultimately my fault that it went down because I swiped the screen, something happened. It was going so well, and now we have to start all over again. So apologies to everyone who was on the last stream and it suddenly went down. I'm taking responsibility. And I'm just going to drop a message on the last stream to let people know to head here because we're just going to carry on from where we left off. I'm going to go back on the stream and look at the questions you were asking. And we're going to go from there. If you left a question or a comment on the previous stream, then please bring it here and we will get to answering it. Really annoyed as I'd already done the preview and the intro and everything, but some things you just have to take in your stride and move on. And I'm trying not to get too frustrated. So I'm going to tweet out the new link. I've gone live straight away so as not to keep anyone waiting because I already did that originally. It's what I'm very good at. So bear with. And we're going to get to answering the questions. Ari Wimbledon. I was in the middle of answering the question, what do I think of the forthcoming Nadal versus Kyrgios matchup in the second round? And I'd done a lot of rambling, which is probably why it crashed. So let's try and avoid that this time around. Just going on Twitter to tweet out the new link. If you could do me a favor, if you were watching this previously, if you could share the link somewhere, just so that we get the viewer numbers back up, that would be amazing. And just going on here to share. So just to go through what I've already said, lots of upsets in the first round of Wimbledon. Naomi Osaka, Venus Williams, and several others on the women's side. And on the men's side, Alexander Zverev, Dominic Thiem, Stefanos Tsitsipas, who could be considered outside contenders, all knocked out in round one. As a group, I would call that a shock, all three of them falling in the first round. But if you take each matchup individually, I would say that it shouldn't really be too surprising. So we'll get to that shortly. I'm going to take the link for this. I'm going to share it. I'm going to get underway again. And if I was better prepared for these things, this might not happen. So, the lesson, be prepared. If something comes up on your screen, don't touch it. And just get on with life. So, thank you for starting to send your questions again. Totally my fault. And where are we at? Here we go. New link. 3, 2, 1. My channel's going to be a mess of random videos now. I need to get to sorting it out. But anyway, carrying on from where I left off. Nick Kyrgios versus Rafael Nadal. When I saw the draw, I knew that this is the sort of match that would get Kyrgios going because he wants to be there to take on Nadal. He lives for these moments against the best on the biggest stages. So I thought that Kyrgios would get up and go for it. At times against Thompson, he was brilliant. His variety, his unpredictability just made him a really tough opponent to face, as I've said on the last video. And the fourth set, getting beaten 6-love and 18 really didn't matter because it was his strategic way, I think, of coping with the fact that he was struggling physically, that he wasn't at the high fitness level he should have been for a 5-set match. And I think, you know, for all the criticism he gets, I think Kyrgios could be quite a smart player on the court. He knows his body and he knows what he needs. And Thompson, have to feel for him because he was committed from the first point to the last, but he was getting frustrated, and that's what Kyrgios does. In a variety of ways, he frustrates his opponents, and I'm pretty sure that he's going to frustrate Nadal. Talking about Nadal's match, which I didn't get around to on the original stream, trying to move on from that, but Nadal faced Yuichi Sugita from Japan. It was a match that many had written him down for a straightforward win in because it's Nadal, and Sugita is a decent player, but he's not a Grand Slam champion. So naturally, Nadal, with the form that he produced at Wimbledon last year, getting to the semis, pushing Novak Djokovic to the brink, naturally expected to roll through. And Nadal nearly went down a double break in the first set. It was a shock day, really, in some respects. I don't like to use the word shock, actually, but it was surprising to see Federer and Nadal struggling early on, because they are two of the names that are just expected to roll past the lower level opposition. So once Nadal got going, I thought he was looking decent, but usually in more recent times, he's got going quite quickly here. He's done well to keep going on the grass. You know, he's won 2 Wimbledon titles. For a player whose best surface is clay, for most people, that's probably enough. For Nadal, he still wants more. He still believes in his ability to win more, and I think that's obvious from the way he competes. Probably a little concerning that he couldn't get going a bit quicker, because with Nadal's super tough draw, he doesn't have much time to get going ahead of matches against, well, Kyrgios firstly, then potentially Jo-Wilfried Tsonga in round 3. It just doesn't get any easier. So Nadal is on more of a time constraints when it comes to playing his way into form than, say, Roger Federer, who looked to have got quite a nice draw early on, but actually struggled against the South African Lloyd Harris a bit in round 1, largely due to his own rustiness, but still. What do I think about Nadal versus Kyrgios? I think that it could be a battle. I think that Kyrgios will be up for it 100%. I think that Nadal's slow start to the tournament makes me a bit more doubtful concerning him. One thing I've had in my mind since I saw the draw is that Wimbledon, particularly in recent years, one of the big 3 has always been upset before the semis, at least, but sometimes also the quarters. Looking at the draw, loads of the top guys have already gone out of Djokovic's half. Federer's got quite a nice, easy road at the beginning of the event. So if there is to be a big upset of those 3 this tournament, it's most likely to be Nadal. And who does he have in the second round? He has Nick Kyrgios, who's beaten him here before, who's beaten him this year, and who frustrates him during matches. So what do I think of that match? I almost don't dare make an outright prediction. I think that either of these 2 could win it quite easily. In a way, it's 50-50. In a way, you can kind of pick points for each players. I might even be leaning Kyrgios, if I'm honest, but again, it comes back to the unpredictability. You don't fully know how he's going to respond if he loses the first set, for example. He might come out with great intentions, but if you come close but then play a few flippant shots like he did against Thompson and go down 2 sets to love, is he still going to have that motivation, or is he going to go walkabout for the rest of the match? There are just too many questions, but I think it's going to be dramatic. It's definitely going to be a must-watch match and an interesting match. And I think an upset is highly possible. So that's my thoughts on Kyrgios versus Nadal. If Nadal comes through that one, he should go get stronger round by round. But it's a very early point in the tournament for this matchup to occur. They faced off in the 4th round when Kyrgios beat Nadal in 2014. And yeah, that's just definitely a match to keep an eye on. So thank you for rejoining the stream. Still kicking myself for wrecking the other one, but it's life. You've got to move forward. You can't move back. And it's only a live stream at the end of the day. So I'm actually going to hop back on the last video and see some of the questions even that were left there before. While I'm doing so, just a plug, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so, because if you don't, you won't know when I'm uploading, you won't know when I'm going live, unless you follow me on my social media, and even then you might not know because I might not have updated. So do subscribe to the channel. And also, Wednesday evenings, the tennis show goes on Love Sport Radio, the show I present alongside Anna Smith, British doubles player, and occasionally 1 or 2 others. I'm not quite sure about this week, but we will be talking all things Wimbledon, 7 till 8 p.m. British time tomorrow evening. Tune in for that online at lovesportradio.com. I don't even think that the previous live stream finished loading because I couldn't find it on here. So apologies, massive apologies from me. And if you did leave a question on the last stream, please come here. Oh, hang on a minute, found it. Wonderful. I don't know why it wasn't on the... Here we go. I'm going to skip through and find these questions. Okay, but so let's start with the ones on here. Okay. What's your opinion on the big three in their first rounds and your prediction about the Kyrgios versus Nadal match? Just spoken about Kyrgios versus Nadal, so I hope you were listening in. The big three in their first rounds, I've touched on that a little bit, but let's go deeper. So Nadal, I was a little surprised, actually, by how slow he was in starting, because I know Sugita's a good player. He was curling the forehand cross court well, using the backhand well. He was all round, I thought, pretty solid from the baseline, at least at the beginning. So I was a little bit surprised that Nadal took so long to get going. He was missing shots, down the line shots, passing shots that he wouldn't usually miss early on, and he did get going towards the end of the match. But yeah, I was just, based on his form here last year when he just kept surprising round by round and how easily he was moving through, I was just a little bit surprised by how long it took Nadal to get going today. And I didn't watch the match in depth, so I can't comment really much more than that in detail. Federer... Okay, so he was against Lloyd Harris, South African, 22-year-old, 6'5". Very good reach, was moving very well for a tall player, and packing a real punch off the forehand, moving his way into the net. And Lloyd Harris just seems to go out there with the mentality that every player, unranked player, should have against Nadal or Federer or Djokovic. They should just go out there seeing that they have no pressure and swinging and consistently, whatever happens, just trying to execute the game plan that's going to do damage. You can't afford to sit back against these guys. You have to be aggressive, especially on grass. And that's what he was trying to do. But at the same time, from what I saw of Federer in the first set, really erratic. And he did confess, I think, to a few nerves after the match, which is interesting. But then again, I mean, I'd half joked before the match that I had a bit of a Lucas Rosol vibe about Lloyd Harris, just because everyone was writing him off as he walked on court, saying a nice experience for him, basically. If a player's in the Wimbledon draw, in the Wimbledon main draw, they're there for a reason. I don't do the whole writing off thing. I don't care what they're ranked. If you're ranked as low as Paul Jubb, who's playing at the moment, who's 400 and something in the world, I don't mind. If you're in that draw, you're there because you can play, and you're there because you have opportunities, and actually you have a big opportunity against the big guys because you've got all the pressure and you've got none of the pressure even, and they've got all the expectation. So I think he came out with a good mindset, and Federer was definitely a bit tight and rusty in that first set, which was almost a bit surprising because he did so well in Halle a couple of weeks ago and went to the title there, but then again did drop sets. I could go back and forth on this for a while, but the big thing is that Federer did get going after that first set, ramped up the first serve percentage, was doing a lot more with that first serve, and looked a lot more convincing by the end of the match than he did at the beginning. But again, a little bit surprised by how slowly Federer and Nadal started. Djokovic, meanwhile, no surprises that he came past Philipp Kohlschreiber in 3 sets. Kohlschreiber, the most difficult opponent that one of the big three faced in the first round, and especially when it's Djokovic up against that opponent, you just know that somehow they're gonna find a way to make all the talk for nothing. Djokovic had already lost to Kohlschreiber once this year, even though Kohlschreiber is a player known, by me at least, for always pushing the top guys but never quite beating them. I saw Djokovic live at Boodles last week where I was working, spoke to him a bit, and he looked very relaxed on the court. It was an exhibition, yes, but even the second match, which he lost, you know, just very at ease. Even though he had a couple of nasty falls, he was able to just move on so quickly and so well, and that's just part of the mental aspect that makes Djokovic so great. So all in all, I didn't watch the Djokovic match completely, but I was not surprised at all that he went in straights. I think it makes a statement early on, and he has a decent draw, you know, so difficult for me to see Djokovic not making the final at the present moment. I say that from the first round. So that's my thoughts on the big three's opening matches. How far do you think Amanda Anisimova may go in Wimbledon 2019? Good question. She really announced herself at the French Open. She was a set and a break up on Ashley Barty, the eventual champion, in the semis. And for half a second, I thought something something massive was going to happen there. I legitimately thought for the first time in a long time that there was real potential for a first teenage Grand Slam champion since, I guess, Maria Sharapova when she won the US Open. That didn't happen, but Anisimova has such a pacey, flat game and moves so well that there's no reason why her game shouldn't thrive on grass as well. In fact, she has a game that is a decent fit for all surfaces, which is great for her. I do think she's going to do big things. Will she at Wimbledon? Depends on the draw, and if I'm honest, I can't actually remember what her draw looks like off the top of my head. So much is dependent on the draw, because you can be playing in the form of your life and come up against someone like, I don't know, Ashley Barty early on. Barty's probably the most reliable player at the moment, hence her #1 position in the ranking. So the draw is massive. That's the real indicator. And I'm just scrolling down now to find out where Anisimova is. And even if she's still in the competition, pretty sure that she is. I'm pretty sure that she won earlier. And I'm going to find out that, here we go, yes, 25th seed, so seeded as a slam for the first time, thanks to her French Open run, and a comprehensive 6-3, 6-3 win over Sorana Castella. Plays Magda Linette next. Now, Linette, you may remember, gave Simona Halep a bit of a run for her money at the French Open, was whipping that cross-court forehand insanely well, and came through her first round in straight sets, but Anisimova should be winning that one no problem. Then she faces the winner of Mladenovic or Kvitova. Both of those players capable of world-class stuff, and from what I saw of Kvitova today, she was playing with intent and purpose, and she's been injured recently, so she has a lot to prove. So I would say that that's going to be Anisimova's first real test, but she should beat Linette, and then it's questionable from the third round onwards. So that's my answer there. Okay. Federer, Kyrgios, and Karolina Pliskova all said that the grass is too long and it's impossible to hit aces. I did see those comments and I was very interested. And the same person has commented another cakewalk to a Wimbledon title for Djokovic. It does aid Djokovic, no questions asked. Federer, Kyrgios, Pliskova, they all like a fast surface. All of them have fast ground strokes, yes, but essentially a really good serve that gets them a lot of free points on a faster surface. And with longer grass and a slower travel, that's not going to be as doable for them. And for someone like Djokovic, whose game is built so much around endurance and just not going away, it's a really good thing. So probably a point in favor of Djokovic. And it's going to be interesting to see if the more the grass is played on and the more it's kind of scuffed up and worn down, see if that makes a difference for the players that stays in. Did Kyrgios tank in the fourth set? Well, you could call it tanking. I think the way I put it is he took a breather because he needed to. So there's when people say tanking, there's kind of a bad image surrounding tanking, that it's a terrible thing and a player's not giving their 100%, and that it's dreadful. E.g. Bernard Tomic earlier today against Jo-Wilfried Tsonga, who clearly wasn't trying at times and was really harshly criticised actually for that. And there's this kind of bad image that surrounds the word tanking. If you want to call it tanking, did Kyrgios give his 100% effort in the fourth set? No, I don't think he did. But I think that was because he was genuinely tired and genuinely struggling. And when he was laughing and joking around in that insanely dramatic, brilliant third set tiebreak, I think it was a coping mechanism because he was actually struggling with his fitness. And I think he just needed to strategically rein it in a bit in the fourth set. That was my feelings anyway concerning that. So call it tank if you will, but I don't think it was a Kyrgios I don't care tanking. It was a Kyrgios I need to reserve my energy for the fifth set kind of tanking, if that makes sense. Do you think Ashley Barty is the favourite in the women's singles? Do you know what? I actually do. I do not remember the last Wimbledon where I came in picking a woman other than Serena to take the title, but Ashley Barty might be my first pick. And it's dangerous because, I mean, yeah, Naomi Osaka won slams back to back, but it just, with the run that Barty's on, having won the French Open and then win the title after, you just think it has to stop somewhere. But honestly, I find it hard to see someone to pick above her. Maybe Kvitova if she can sustain her form, and Serena, I'm never going to write her off. She always has opportunities when she's playing her best. But at the same time, you know, I do think that Ashley Barty is the most reliable woman on tour right now. That's why she's at the top, and I could not be more happy for her. Literally, she epitomizes everything that a hardworking athlete should be. She's so focused, and she has every shot in her repertoire. She can hit hard, she can mix it up. She's so focused. I've probably said that before. She's just so focused, and some people find that boring, but I love that about her. She's absolutely fantastic and deserves to be at the top of the rankings, and I'm so glad to see her there, because throughout this season she's just displayed a consistency across the board that no one else has been able to match. And I think it would be a wonderful thing if she were able to win Wimbledon and we were able to see some of that consistent star power that the tour has been lacking at times. So there are my thoughts on Barty at the moment. She did struggle a bit more than I thought she would in her first round against Sai Zheng. She raced out to a 3-love lead, but then got pegged back. And the Chinese player kept her quite close in that first set. But, you know, it's warming her way into things. It was her first win picked up as the world number one, and credit to her, she got it done. So, yeah, there are the thoughts on Barty. Do you think that Djokovic is the better player in this Wimbledon comparing to Federer and Nadal? I've spoken about that previously. Can only go off that first... can only go off those first rounds. And I think that of the first round matches, all in all, Djokovic was the most convincing, probably, but, you know, Nadal and Federer did come through strong at the back end of their matches, and better to get that rest out of their system now than take it with them later in the tournament. So let's go to the questions on the new live stream. Female tennis player that inspired you to play / enjoy tennis. I don't mind saying this because I've said it before, but when I was really young, actually, Wimbledon was my first memory of tennis, and my first vivid memory of tennis was seeing Venus Williams win the title. So Venus and Serena were massive for me growing up in wanting to follow the sport beyond Wimbledon and with the tour during the year. On the women's side anyway, there were male players I was following as well, but for me in the women's game it was all about Serena and Venus growing up. So sad to see Sharapova go out like that. Yeah, I think it's just a shame. I think that she couldn't stand out on the court and just lose the next 4 points and lose the match outright for the sake of Pauline Parmentier, who, for all of Sharapova's physical struggles, was out there fighting and earning the win, you know? It's not the first time that a player's pulled out a few points away from losing the match. It won't be the last. And I mean, I have my thoughts on Sharapova and how she's conducted herself over the last 2-3 years, but I wouldn't actually have expected her to pull out like that and not give her opponent the win outright. I don't know if she's done it before, but yeah, it's surprising and a bit disappointing. I mean, it's her decision at the end of the day, but what's 4 points to stand there? I mean, everyone knows she's injured anyway. She doesn't need to prove a point. Do you think Serena Williams could beat Kerber should they meet in the 4th round? Depends what kind of form they're both in. Kerber obviously went to the Eastbourne final last week. I'm always a bit wary when a player makes a good run the week prior to a Grand Slam, because that means if they go deep in the slam, they're playing 3 straight weeks of intense tennis, and when you're playing a 7-match tournament, even if it's not physical fatigue, mental fatigue can come into things, and it's almost just too much tennis in a short space of time. So I am always a bit of a skeptic when players have competed the week before a slam. Karolina Pliskova won Eastbourne. The moment that happened, I was like, oh, okay then. Wimbledon title hopes going down. But I have my doubts about Pliskova anyway, to be honest. So there you go. But yes, Serena versus Kerber would it be a potentially good match? Serena would know better what to expect. Last year in the final, Serena had faced power players all the way through, came up against a counterpuncher in Kerber in the final and got crushed because she just couldn't adjust to that game style. I think she'd be more ready for it this year. I also don't think that Kerber's in the form she was in when she went to the title last year. She'd surely come out swinging because all the players tend to against Serena. They see their chance. But honestly, looking at Serena's first round today, if she is planning on playing mixed doubles with Andy Murray, I don't know what kind of decision she's making and what thoughts are going through her mind there, because from what I saw today, she should be focusing every scrap of her energy on her singles game, which has not made many appearances this year. And usually, and I've said this before, usually I would say Serena does not need to play that many matches in order to produce her best. Even sometimes at this stage of her career, it's better if she doesn't play as many matches because she's preserving energy. But I was not impressed with her match today. She came through in straight sets, so that's something. But she was up against, I'm going to mess up this pronunciation, but Giulia Gatto-Montecone. That's what I've always called her. She's been doing well, making a bit of a breakthrough on the WTA this year, but definitely better suited to a slower surface, a clay court. She made a couple of good results on clay, I believe, this year. May have that wrong, but I'm pretty sure I saw that. And you know, she's one of those players that, credit to her, because she's fought her way into this position to be in this main draw. But she wasn't doing anything special against Serena. And from the first few points, Serena was a bit rusty. She was making misses. I could just tell that she was going to make more of a deal out of the match than there should have been. She was getting uptight. She was tight, actually sums her up. You know, she just wasn't as loose as she should have been. This girl, Gatto-Montecone, was getting the ball back in the court. She wasn't really, honestly, doing much else, getting a good bit of depth sometimes, but Serena should have been landing her shots. She was making a lot of unforced errors. To come through that again, I mean, I have to give her some credit. She came through in straight sets, but it should have been a much easier straight sets than it was. So for Serena, she's just got to take the positives and look at the fact that, hey, hopefully I got that out of my system early on, and I don't have to endure those same kind of struggles later in the tournament, because a player like Kerber is not going to be so forgiving. I do think nerves are becoming more of a factor with Serena, whether it's a Grand Slam final or whether it's early in a slam. She didn't handle that match against Sofia Kenin in the third round of the French Open well at all when it came to nerves and keeping her composure. So that's definitely something for her to think about, I would say. Not writing her off at all. She would be up there in my list of contenders, but I'm not as confident with her at the moment as I would be in previous years. I've always picked Serena as the Wimbledon winner. I can't remember the last time I predicted someone over her, but I am a little bit concerned about the form that I saw from her today. Now, I've just been informed that the device that I'm filming with is running on low battery, so I'm going to see what I can do about that in order to keep going. Clearly, I was incredibly well prepared for this video, but at least it's getting filmed, which is something. 1 minute and we'll get back to answering the questions. Is there still tennis going on at Wimbledon? Is anyone watching matches live right now? Would be interested to know. Is this going to connect? Big question. I might have to drop this a bit lower to make it work. Better idea. It's charging. Fantastic. Okay, we may continue. Where are we at? How was Serena scheduled on centre court despite being the number 12 seed? She's the number 11 seed, right? Not that there's much of a difference, but I believe that to be the case. Let me check. Serena Williams. Oh, easier way of doing it. Just go on here. Serena is the number 11 seed. What was the question? Where are we at? How is Serena scheduled on centre court despite being the number 12 seed? When the same was done to Federer in Australia in 2017, there was considerable outrage. Look, this whole court scheduling thing, there's always going to be controversy. I've seen several scheduling moves that have made me raise my eyebrows. For example, Corey Goff being scheduled on court 2 against Magdalena Rybarikova, who was playing pretty much at ITF. And she played an ITF event a few weeks ago. So that's essentially two ITF players on court 2 because of the hype surrounding the younger girl. I mean, hype shouldn't outweigh seedings, right? There are plenty of seeded players that should be on that court above that match. but it's going to happen, you know? At the end of the day, the players are going to have to deal with playing where they want to. In that match, honestly, my concern is more for Corey Goff, because not only does she have to face the mental pressure of living up to the win over Venus, but she now has to do it on a show court, which shouldn't really be happening. She should be on an outside court with that match. So it's going to be interesting. I say it's going to be interesting to see how she handles it mentally. Looking at the girl so far, I don't think the mental side of things is really an issue. She's had this team around her that have done what many champions, families, and support systems have done before. They've instilled the mindset of a champion within her. It's clear, and she's going places. But at the same time, yeah, leave that one there. Where are we at? How well will Dan Evans do at Wimbledon? Will he make the third round? Given Evans' form, he has every opportunity, I think, to make the third round. He has a great game. He has a game that's a great fit for the surface. One match that will stick with me very much, probably for a long time, is his match against Federer at the Australian Open in January. 3 tie breaks, and both of them going toe-to-toe with the serves and volleys, with the slice backhands. And it was just obvious how much his game is kind of modeled to Federer's, which is the perfect fit for grass when grass courts are playing at the speed they should be played at. So Evans into the second round to face Nicolas Basilashvili, who was 2-0 down to James Ward, fellow Brit of Dan Evans. Ward has had some rough... I'm not going to call it rough luck, actually, because nothing in tennis is luck unless you're playing doubles and have to play sudden death deuce. I think it's just a mental thing for Ward a bit, because he's had long matches at Wimbledon that he's come out the wrong end of. I remember like it was yesterday, him losing to Mardy Fish in 5 sets. Fish was in the top 10 at the time. Today, up 2 sets on Basilashvili and losing that one in 5 sets. So Basilashvili, the seeded player there, but if James Ward can go 2 sets to love up on him, then Evans can sure as heck beat him, and that opens up the draw for him even more. So yeah, I think Evans can make the third round and go further. I think that with the results he's had, he won 2 challenger titles, Surbiton and Nottingham. I don't think that he's going to be overthinking things, and he's an obvious talent, so I can see Evans going deep. Where are we at? Can you talk the American way? If you don't want to listen, you don't have to. It's all good. Did you watch Kenin's match? What did you think of her as a potential semi-finalist? Check out the remaining season a quarter. Here's the thing. If players... if seeded players have fallen in the quarter, it makes things so much bigger of a possibility. So I'm not aware of what Kenin's section of the draw looks like at the moment. So to save time here, maybe I'll have to look at that afterwards. But Kenin is one of those players that, for some reason, has been doing well this year, but just hasn't been talked about as much as the likes of Amanda Anisimova, Bianca Andreescu, other players of similar age who have also, on the whole, been having similar results. They've had 1 or 2 standout ones. Kenin has been making steady progress, I would say. Obviously got that big win over Serena. I didn't watch her first round match, actually, so I'm not sure how she played. But she's another player who is a very confident, which is essential in this sport. And Sofia Kenin, where's she at? Can't even find who she beat in round 1. I can't remember who she was up against. Let's have a look for her. No, the way she competed against Serena, she just rose to the occasion, and it wasn't a flash in the pan, we know, because she's been doing so well over the past few months. So she's definitely the kind of player to be keeping an eye on, I would say. And if things have opened up in her side of the draw, which I can believe, given that, I don't know, the likes of Osaka have been dropping out, and Osaka, I was a little surprised that she went out in the first round because of the state of her draw. She had a good draw, and she would have known that she had a good draw. In fact, I think she even said in a post-match press conference that she had a good draw. She was aware of it, and she was the standout name there. So when she dips out, there's suddenly a wide opening for a lot of players. Ostapenko went out as well. She was in that side. A lot of big names actually dropping down. So yeah, so Kenin beat Astra Sharma, of course. I think it was the first win of the tournament recorded. 6-4, 6-2, she whizzed through that. Now she plays Diana Yastremska. If she comes through that, she's got great chances because she is very close to Osaka, where Osaka was in the quarter. Osaka went out to Putintseva. Putintseva is now facing a very different look in the draw. She had clear... let's try and talk proper English. She had a very clear game plan against Osaka. She'd played her 2 weeks before, and her strategy was to craft it out. She sliced for her life. She drop-shotted. She spun the forehand. She looped shots. She did everything she could to make Osaka uncomfortable, and once again, it worked because she was so steady. She comes up, she now plays Victoria Golubic. Then if she comes through that, she plays Kenin or Yastremska. These are all players that compete in a different way to Osaka, so it's not about having a set strategy that she knows has been successful before. And it's even harder because she's now got pressure on her shoulders. She isn't so much the underdog. So there are definite chances for Kenin to go really deep in this draw, actually. I mean, you look at the players she could face in the 4th round as well. Highest seed of them is number 14 seed Caroline Wozniacki, who is in some trouble against Sara Sorribes-Tormo before Sorribes-Tormo had to retire. Sorribes-Tormo had to retire. There we go, said it properly. And yeah, she really did have to retire. She didn't retire 4 points from the end just because she didn't feel like giving the opponent the win. So there you go. Where are we at? What did you think about Kvitova's win over Ons Jabeur? And tell me, what do you know about that player since she's from my country? I know that she's in good form at the moment, actually. From what I've seen of her, she hits quite a heavy shot. She's got some good firepower going on, but can mix it up a bit when she needs to. She got the win, I believe, over Konta in Birmingham. I think it was either Birmingham or Eastbourne. But so that, given the form that she was in, that was actually a tough opener for Kvitova, who's coming back from injury, who hasn't had match practice. And yet, from what I saw, Kvitova was just dialed in. Kvitova was all about the aggression on this surface, and she was pounding second serve returns. She was looking full of intent and very sharp with that lefty swing. So I think that was a convincing victory from Kvitova, and I definitely have my eye on her to go deep into the events. But at the same time, she's in this half that's completely packed with a loaded top quarter. So, you know, it's going to depend how other people are playing as well. It's not just going to be about Kvitova, but she is one of those players who, when she's on her day, a lot of the time it's going to be on her rackets. Oh, sorry, I'm missing questions here. Vekic versus Risk is still going, close one. Yeah, I saw the first set of Vekic versus Risk. Donna Vekic is a player I follow quite closely during the grass court season so far because she's done especially well on the surface throughout her career. Actually, go a couple of videos back on this channel and you'll see a video that I filmed with Donna a couple of weeks ago in Nottingham where I tested her on her grass court memory. She got quite into it, pretty competitive. She'd had a long day as well, so that was fun. But it was good stuff from her. I was impressed by her attitude in that first set. Something I've always said about Vekic over the years is she can get quite negative and down on herself in matches. But after she held a 13 deuce game to get on the board, and she was already down a break, I think, in the first set, she threw her arms in the air, she was laughing, she cheered, and was just a little more relaxed and not so down on herself throughout that set. And Vekic, even though she's got the flat, powerful shots, she's not just about that. She can execute a really good drop shot. I've seen her pull it off many times recently. And yeah, it's a very tough opening match for her against Risk, who's I think has won she's won a tournament on grass this year, and certainly in the past both of them have won Nottingham previously. And yeah, that's a really tough opening match for both of them because both of them are in such good form. What do you make of Tsitsipas and Zverev's first round exits? It looks like another average generation. I would disagree with that last comment, but I'm glad you asked me about these exits. So here's what I think about these exits, okay? Because I was counting Tsitsipas not as, I wouldn't have called him a title contender, because at the moment I don't really see serious title contenders at the outset of a tournament outside of the big three. However, I think a lot of people were expecting Tsitsipas to challenge. I saw him play live last week. He was with us at Boodles. And actually, when I asked him about his favourite surfaces, he actually said that clay is still his favourite, and we talked a bit about how his game supposedly fits well to grass, but he has had better results on clay. He spoke as well about what he needed to do during Wimbledon in terms of being aggressive and being patient, and I saw him trying to do that in his first round. But, you know, he was against a zoning opponent in Thomas Fabiano. Now, I would say that Tsitsipas' loss was more of a shock than Zverev's. I do not think that Zverev's loss was a shock at all. I did think he'd probably take it to 5 sets because that's what he tends to do at Grand Slams, but he was up against Yuri Vesely. I know it's Vesely, but I'm always changing the way I pronounce his first name, so bear with me, you know who I mean. The Czech guy, tall, big shots, very good at the net as well, has beaten big names in the sport, has beaten Dominic Thiem at Wimbledon prior to this, had beaten Novak Djokovic on clay, so he's able to do well across surfaces. Vesely, ranked outside the top 100 at the moment, but definitely capable of much higher quality than that. I think he may even have been seeded at slams before, and he'd come through qualifying. So here's Zverev, who hasn't played in a little while, coming into Wimbledon with a lot of personal issues that he's dealing with that I'm not sure most people know the whole of, but he's been dealing over the past few months with quite a few things off court. And he comes on facing Vesely, first round of Wimbledon. He's come through qualifying, he's warmed up, and I think that Zverev's loss was a lot less surprising than Tsitsipas for that reason, because he was up against a quality opponent on grass, hits a heavy shot, and was having a great day on that occasion. Zverev was in control at a set, and I'm not sure he was a set and a breakup, but he was a set up and definitely on serve in the second set, hit a double fault, and it just all went downhill from there. And you saw in that match mentally how difficult it is for Zverev at the slams, just because it's a regular thing for him at slams where he's forced to 5 sets. At first, it was almost a cool thing because he was getting pushed in these battles and he was often coming through. But the more it happens, the more it gets in his head. It's almost like he feels if he loses a set, he suddenly has to go to 4 or 5 sets. It suddenly has to be a battle. He was getting quite negative, quite down on himself. And actually afterwards, he spoke about how his confidence levels are on 0. He was very frank and very honest after that match. And no, I wasn't surprised to see Zverev go out. I was more surprised to see Tsitsipas go out. When I saw that draw on paper, I would not have seen him going out. But, you know, Fabiano, one of those guys who can just come out and have a great day. And any guy, you know, in this draw, there, like I said, probably in the previous live stream when I was rambling, every person is in the draw for a reason. And Fabiano's there because he can play great tennis. And I was very impressed with how he managed things in terms of his focus on the match and his mentality, because Tsitsipas saved match points to actually take the match to, I think he saved match points to take the match to a 4th set. No, to a 5th set. In the tiebreak. And when he'd done that, I actually thought Tsitsipas would probably come through because he was so aggressive with the way he saved the big points. He was coming forwards, he was keeping the forehand low, coming to the net. But full credit to Fabiano, you know, 2 massive results there, big upsets. What about Halep's match? How far will she go? The bits I saw of Simona Halep's first round, I'm just hard to impress this year, but I wasn't very impressed. Halep is a player that has done well on grass before. People now think of her as more of a clay courser because she made her breakthrough at the French Open, but they also forget that she's made the semis here. She lost to Eugenie Bouchard on that occasion, and she rolled her ankle in the second set tiebreak. To this day, I think she thinks, as well as me thinking this, that she would have won that match if she wasn't injured. So yeah, Halep better on grass than she's rated, but didn't really show that. I didn't think in her first match. Struggling to remember already who she played. It was Alexandra Sasnovich. Now, Sasnovich had a good run I think beginning of last year, she really started to announce herself. She has quite an intense game, good backhand slice as well. And she was asking the questions of Halep. Halep able to come through in straight sets, but I thought less easily than she should have done. From what I saw, I just didn't think it was a high quality match from either player. But sometimes, you've just got to scrap it out. And Halep, had spotlight on her at the French Open because she was defending champion, but that is old news now. That's gone. So there are definitely players in this draw. Ashley Barty, finally, now she's number one. Serena, with the record she's going for. There are players that are going to have more attention on them than Halep, and I think she'll probably like it that way. So wouldn't put it past Halep to come up with a good result, but she wouldn't be my first pick to go all the way to the title. I have other women that I see doing that more than Halep. Sorry, just dropped something. Oh, someone very kindly listed me the seeds left in Kenin's section. Thank you for that, Matt. Let's read them out. Halep, Wozniacki, Keys. Her path to get to the semi-final would be Yastremska, Putintseva, Wozniacki, Halep. Now, it's not the easiest, but at the same time, on a grass court, could definitely be worse. After Yastremska, you've got 3 counterpunches straight there, and Halep, grass courts are supposed to favour the power players. So, Kenin has shots there, definitely has shots. What do you think is the cause of Naomi Osaka's current dip in form? Also, what do you think is the solution? Good question. I don't think there's any one major thing. Think about it, okay? On grass courts, she played 2 events. She lost to the same player twice. And I think I used this comparison yesterday on the radio. Putintseva is like Osaka's kryptonite at the moment. That's what really does damage to her game. It's not so much about Osaka. People look at the unforced error count in that match. Osaka hit a lot of unforced errors and they say, okay, Osaka malfunctioned. No, she didn't. I'd be more inclined to put some of those unforced errors down as forced errors, because even though the shots in and of themselves were not forced errors, they came about because Putintseva had her running around so much and she was playing so much with her that Osaka was panicking and trying to overhit. It was all Putintseva doing the work. There's a difference between Venus Williams and Naomi Osaka in the ways they went out. Venus, and I know this goes against the narrative of 15-year-old playing out of her mind, absolutely stunning, la-di-da. Venus Williams played a bad match. I will come out and say that right now. I was not surprised because I thought that Corey Goff was going to win that match because it was just made to be. From the moment that draw was made, she'd come through qualifying, she was in form, Venus has been struggling for form. It was going to happen. But the thing with Venus in that match was that her many unforced errors were literally her overhitting or her pulling out of shots, her double faulting a lot in key moments. It was very much on the racket of Venus. Osaka's unforced errors came about because of the strategy of her opponent. Venus' opponent was getting the ball in the court and Venus was doing the rest. Putintseva was slicing, she was hitting deep, she was hitting high, she was playing with Osaka and putting her in the position to make those unforced errors. I see a massive difference between the way Osaka lost and the way Venus lost. Venus, I felt a lot to do with her. Osaka, I felt more to do with her opponent, honestly, because that is the sort of thing that is going to get Osaka down. She likes a power player. There are many power players on the circuit that she's been able to play against in key moments. She struggled against Sue Shea, who also mixes things up like crazy. These are the players that Osaka struggles against, and she's come up against a lot of them. Who did she lose to at the French Open? Katerina Siniakova. What does she do? Come to the net, drop shot, slice, do all these kinds of things that Osaka hates. So is it so much a problem with Osaka herself? I don't think so. I think she's coming up against these players with game styles that she doesn't like. And the more that happens, that's when her confidence starts to go, and she might even start to think it's a problem with herself, and then that becomes a mental issue, and then it goes and goes and goes. So I think the root of the issue is actually the style of player that Osaka's coming up against. I don't think it's anything to do with Osaka herself, with the team she's got around her. It's literally this game style that she's coming up against and how she responds to it, and then mentality and confidence becomes more of an issue. But the root, I think, is the counterpuncher and the crafty player. These guys that can come out and just drag Osaka around and not put her in the position where she can rip winners, which is what she likes to do. So the solution, don't play counter punches, but also, you know, probably realize this. I think she needs to sit down, look at the matches she's played, see the kinds of players she's struggled against, and come up with a strategy to defeat that. When she was in positions where she was crushing Putintseva, and when she was in the right position on the court, it looks like Putintseva was just going to get dragged around, flung from side to side. But the more it went on, I think the more doubts Osaka started to have. In, I think, the penultimate point of the match, you could tell that Putintseva had won because it was Osaka that was the first to back away from her game plan. Putintseva was slicing, Osaka was striking, and then on the penultimate point, Osaka backed down. She started to slice as well. Putintseva won the point. That was it. That was the mental victory won. So Osaka needs to sit down, look back at the matches she's played, see why she's lost them, and assess how to deal with that, rather than sit there and think, oh no, things are going wrong, start to panic, and just kind of not really know where to go. I mean, I would be surprised if her team are not aware that this is an issue, but yeah. And I mean, the whole split with Sasha Bayan, the ascent to number one, yeah, I think, you know, stuff like that does have an impact, but I think that the whole Osaka shy of the spotlight thing, I don't buy it, really. She's a player that, yes, is shy, but also has grown up with the mentality that she wants to beat the best and she wants to be the best. And this kind of attention comes with that, so it's something she will have been ready for. I think this is more about dealing with a certain kind of game style, as I've just said and probably spoken about for 5 minutes, so we're moving on. Where are we at? Kyrgios, how to fix... Oh, I'm sorry, I just don't think I can talk about Kyrgios anymore. It's tiring, you know, and at the same time, I don't want to sit here in the judgment seat, like, just judging everything he does, like some people do. I understand Kyrgios' frustration with the media because they pick up on small things and make a big deal out of them. At the same time, I think that Kyrgios is just a walking contradiction sometimes because he doesn't want the attention, but at the same time he does. And he doesn't want to play tennis, but at the same time he does because he wants to win. There's just pros and cons and here's and there's, and it's just all over the place with Kyrgios. But, you know, this whole thing with the media and with the way he's covered, you know, I understand his frustration a bit there. But as I've said before, you know, things are going to be blown out of proportion because there are people here that write articles for money and need to eat. They need to make a living. So if he smashes a racket, he smashed a racket, they're going to make an article out of it. And no, it's not really worth anyone's time them doing that, but they know that's what's going to make them money. And the thing with Kyrgios is, over time, he's built up a reputation for himself, and he needs to kind of be in a certain way for long enough to shake off that reputation. If he's taking 1 step forward, 2 steps back, these articles and stuff are going to keep happening. I don't know if that even answers the question, but kind of gone off on a ramble there on a tangent. And no, I'll talk about Kyrgios tennis and anything relates to actually what goes on the court, but the kind of how do we fix Nick Kyrgios question is just one that I've had to talk about a lot recently. So probably move on from that. I could do a 10-hour video. Your thoughts on Nadal versus Kyrgios. If you go back to the beginning of the video and also to the last video that got abandoned because I messed up, I did speak about that. So yeah, you can catch up on that. Thoughts on Caroline Garcia's road to a potential first quarter final. Oh no, no, Caroline Garcia's out. Naomi Osaka is out. Wozniacki's road to a potential first Wimbledon quarter final. Even if the draw opens up, and I may be wrong, because honestly, I never thought Wozniacki would win a slam. I just did not think that would happen. The draw opened up for her that time she won the Australian Open. I don't see her winning another slam, and she's certainly not in the form, I don't think, to do it at Wimbledon. But when it's been so long without Wozniacki having won a quarter-final, I just think that she will find a way not to take advantage of this draw. I mean, we've just looked down. She's in Kenin's section, right? So there are players that probably have the form to take her out. And I'll have to have a look at her draw more carefully. But honestly, Wozniacki was in early trouble against Sara Sorribes Tormo, who just topspins like heck from the baseline and volleys a bit. And I think that, you know, she should probably come through second round. Third round, potentially Janina Wickmeyer might be an issue. And then fourth round, maybe looking at Sophia Kenin. So it's definitely a winnable draw for her. But with it being Wozniacki and with her not having been in great form of late, I just find it hard to see her taking advantage, really. But anything can happen. It's a wide open women's draw. Hey, my voice is going a bit if you can hear it, so I'm going to have to wrap up in a minute. Here comes the question. I thought I'd do the whole video without having to answer this. Who's going to win the Wimbledon championship this year? Brackets, men. Well, I'm glad you only asked me about the men, because that's the easier one to answer. Usually I'd be saying Federer, or kind of two-way battle between Djokovic and Federer. Today and this fortnight, I'm more inclined to say Djokovic, just because with the mental aspect and the way that comes into play further down the line, I think that Djokovic would probably handle the occasion better. Djokovic and Federer, due to the seeding this year, can only meet in the final. And there's always been a thing over most of the recent years with Federer facing Djokovic in a best-of-5 final. There's just this mental block. And I think what Federer needed was for him to face Djokovic in a final of that prestige, when Federer was coming back in 2017 and doing really well and Djokovic had started to dip. I think he needed to get a win over a subpar Djokovic at that level in order to kind of break that mental barrier, but that didn't happen. So it would be interesting to see Djokovic and Federer up against each other. But at the moment, I just think that, and with the conditions of the courts as well, with it traveling slower than Federer would like, I'd be more inclined to say Djokovic. I don't dare say him outright, but I think for me, it's probably between Djokovic and Federer, and I'd be more inclined to go with Djokovic at this point in time. I think Conchita Martinez's coaching has helped Pliskova immensely and can bring her to a Wimbledon crown. As I said earlier in the video, I'm just a bit of a skeptic about Pliskova. There always seems to be something stopping her crossing that final hurdle to a Premier Mandatory title or a Wimbledon title or a Grand Slam title. And the fact that she won Eastbourne means that if she gets to the back end of Wimbledon, she's probably going to be quite tired. So talented, yes. Wimbledon champion, I don't think so, but I could well be proved wrong. So let's see. Did you watch Elise Mertens today? No, I did not. And there are many players that I did not watch because there's so much going on. I feel like the second day, where the top half of the women's draw plays and the bottom half of the men's draw plays, for some reason, is just so much more packed than the previous day. So every second day of this fortnight, if you know what I mean, is going to be pretty wild, I think, and it's going to be difficult to keep across everyone, but I've done as well as I can, and I'm going to wrap this video up for now, because we've been going for nearly an hour, and if we include the video that went awry, it's been over an hour. So thank you very much for tuning in. I'm sorry if I rambled and spoke too fast at times. It's what I do when I'm trying to get through things. So again, subscribe please if you haven't, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to tune in to the tennis show on lovesportradio.com tomorrow night, 7 till 8 p.m. British time, and I shall be back for another video at the end of the second round. Thank you all for joining. It's been fun. I love just being able to spout my opinions, and you're welcome. Thank you for sending your questions, and hopefully see you next time. So enjoy the second round, and I'll see you soon.